Well, hello. Thank you for joining me back here on Lesson 5, December the 5th of 2023, in A Course in Miracles Workbook for Students. We're reading from the original edition. I am never upset for the reason I think. This idea, like the preceding one, can be used with any person, situation, or event you think is causing you pain. Apply it specifically to whatever you believe is the cause of your upset, using the description of the feeling in whatever term seems accurate to you. The upset may seem to be fear, worry, depression, anxiety, anger, hatred, jealousy, or any number of forms, all of which will be perceived as different. Well, this is not true. However, until you learn that form does not matter, each form becomes a proper subject for the exercise for the day. Applying the same idea to each of them separately is the first step in ultimately recognizing they are all the same. When using the idea for today for a specific perceived cause of an upset in any form, use both the name of the form in which you see the upset and the cause which you ascribe to it. For example, I'm not angry at blank for the reason I think. I'm not afraid of blank for the reason I think. But again, this should not be substituted for practice periods in which you first search your mind for sources of upset in which you believe and forms of upset which you think result. In these exercises, more than in the preceding ones, you may find it hard to be indiscriminate and to avoid giving greater weight to some subjects than to others. It might help to precede the exercises with the statement, "There are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind." Then examine your mind for whatever is distressing you, regardless of how much or how little you think it is doing so. You may also find yourself less willing to apply today's idea to some perceived sources of upset than to others. If this occurs, think first of this: I cannot keep this form of upset and let the others go. For the purpose of these exercises, then, I will regard them all as the same. Then search your mind for no more than a minute or so and try to identify a number of different forms of upset that are disturbing you. Regardless of the relative importance you may give them, apply the idea for today to each of them using the name of both the source of the upset as you perceive it and of the feelings as you experience it. Further examples are, I'm not worried about blank for the reason I think. I'm not depressed about blank, and of course fill in the blank with whatever is appropriate for you. I am not worried about whoever for the reason I think. Or I'm not depressed about whatever the situation or person you're depressed about is for the reason I think. 3 or 4 times during the day are enough. Okay, let's go take a look in our text reading. And we are ready for Chapter 1, which is Introduction to Miracles, Section 1, Principles of Miracles, starting in paragraph 76, Miracle Principle 48. Awe is an inappropriate response to miracles. Revelation is literally unspeakable because it is an experience of unspeakable love. Awe should be reserved for revelation, to which it is perfectly and correctly applicable. It is not appropriate for miracles because a state of awe is worshipful. It implies that one of a lesser order stands before a greater one. This is the case only when a soul stands before its Creator. Souls are perfect creations and experience awe only in the presence of the Creator of perfection. 78. The miracle, on the other hand, is a sign of love among equals. Equals cannot be in awe of one another because awe implies inequality. It is therefore an inappropriate reaction to me, says Jesus. An elder brother is entitled to respect for his greater experience and a reasonable amount of obedience for his greater wisdom. He's also entitled to love because he is a brother, and also to devotion if if he is devoted. It is only my devotion that entitles me to yours. There is nothing about me that you cannot attain. I have nothing that does not come from God. The main difference between us as yet is that I have nothing else. This leaves me in a state of true holiness, which is only a potential in you. Paragraph 79. No man cometh unto the Father but by me is among the most misunderstood statements in the Bible. And that's from John 14:6. It does not mean that I am in any way separate or different from you except in time, which does not really exist at all. Actually, the quotation is more meaningful if it is considered on a vertical rather than a horizontal axis. Regarded along the vertical, man stands below me and I stand below God. In the process of rising up, I am higher. This is because without me, the distance between God and man would be too great for you to encompass. 80. I bridge the distance as an elder brother to man on the one hand and as a son of God on the other. My devotion to my brothers has placed me in charge of the sonship, which I can render complete only to the extent to which I can share it. This may appear to contradict the statement, I and my Father are one, from John 10:30, but there are still separate parts in the statement in recognition that the Father is greater. The original statement was, are of one kind. So you might say it, I and my Father are one, or I and my Father are of one kind. The Holy Spirit is the bringer of revelations. Revelations are indirectly inspired by me because I am close to the Holy Spirit and alert to the revelation readiness of all my brothers. I can thus bring down to them more than they can draw down to themselves. Well, thank you for being alert to our revelation readiness. Paragraph 81, Miracle Principle 49. The Holy Spirit is the highest communication medium. Miracles do not involve this type of communication because they are temporary communication devices. When man returns to his original form of communication with God, the need for miracles is over. The Holy Spirit mediates higher to lower communication, keeping the direct channel from God to man open for revelation. Revelation is not reciprocal. It is always from God to man. The miracle is reciprocal because it involves equality. Miracle Principle 50. The miracle is a learning device which lessens the need for time. In the longitudinal or horizontal plane, the recognition of the true equality of all the members of the sonship appears to involve almost endless time. However, the sudden shift from horizontal to vertical perception, which the miracle entails, introduces an interval from which the doer and the receiver both emerge much further along in time than they would otherwise have been. The miracle thus has the unique property of shortening time by rendering the space of time it occupies unnecessary. There is no relationship between the time a miracle takes and the time it covers. It substitutes for learning that might have taken thousands of years. It does this by the underlying recognition of perfect equality and holiness between the doer and the receiver on which the miracle rests. We said before that the miracle abolishes time. It does this by a process of collapsing it and thus abolishing certain intervals within it. It does this, however, within the larger temporal sequence. It establishes an out-of-pattern time interval which is not under the usual laws of time. Only in this sense is it timeless. By collapsing time, it literally saves time, much as daylight savings time does. It rearranges the distribution of light. Miracle Principle 51. The miracle is the only device which man has at his immediate disposal for controlling time. Only revelation transcends time, having nothing to do with time at all. The miracle is much like the body in that both are learning aids which aim at facilitating a state in which they are unnecessary. When the soul's original state of direct communication is reached, neither the body nor the miracle serves any purpose. While he believes he is in a body, however, man can choose between loveless and miraculous channels of expression. Loveless and loving, miraculous channels of expression. He can make an empty shell, but he cannot express nothing at all. He can wait, delay, paralyze himself, reduce his creativity to almost nothing, and even introduce a developmental arrest or even a regression. But he cannot abolish his creativity. He can destroy his medium of communication, but not his potential. 87. Man was not created by his own free will alone. Only what he creates is his to decide. The basic decision of the miracle-minded is not to wait on time any longer than is necessary. Time can waste as well as be wasted. The miracle worker therefore accepts the time control factor gladly, because he recognizes that every collapse of time brings all men closer to the ultimate release from time, in which the Son and the Father are one. 88. Equality does not imply homogeneity now. When everyone recognizes that he has everything, individual contributions to the sonship will no longer be necessary. When the atonement has been completed, all talents will be shared by all the sons of God. God is not partial. God is not a respecter of persons, thinking some are better than others. God is not partial. All his children have his total love, and all his gifts are freely given to everyone alike. Except you become as little children, of course that's a quote out of Matthew 18, verse 3. Except you become as little children means that unless you fully recognize your complete dependence on God, you cannot know the real power of the Son and his true relationship with the Father. 89. You who want peace can find it only by complete forgiveness. Boy, there's an important sentence. You who want peace can find it only by complete forgiveness. You never really wanted peace before, so there was no point in being told how to achieve it. No learning is acquired by anyone unless he wants to learn it and believes in some way that he needs it. While the concept of lack does not exist in the creation of God, it is very apparent in the creations of man. It is in fact the essential difference. A need implies lack by definition. It involves the recognition that you would be better off in a state which is somehow different from the one you are in, which is impossible in heaven, but very possible on this earth, where we believe in separation or lack. And paragraph 90, until the separation, which is a better term than the fall, nothing was lacking. This means that man had no needs at all. If he had not deprived himself, he would never have experienced them. After the separation, needs became the most powerful source of motivation for human action. All behavior is essentially motivated by needs, but behavior itself is not a divine attribute. The body is the mechanism for behavior. The belief that he could be better off is the reason why man has this mechanism at his disposal. Paragraph 91. Each one acts according to the particular hierarchy of needs he establishes for himself. His hierarchy, in turn, depends on his perception of what he is, that is, what he lacks. A sense of separation from God is the only lack he really needs to correct. A sense of separation from God is the only lack he really needs to correct. This sense of separation would never have occurred if he had not distorted his perception of truth and thus perceived himself as lacking. The concept of any sort of need hierarchy arose because, having made this fundamental error, he had already fragmented himself into levels with different needs. As he integrates, he becomes one, and his needs become one accordingly. Paragraph 92. Unified need produces unified action because it produces a lack of ambivalence. The concept of a need hierarchy, a corollary to the original error that man can be separated from God, requires correction at its own level before the error of perceiving levels at all can be corrected. Man cannot behave effectively while he operates at split levels. However, while he does, correction must be introduced from the bottom up. This because he now operates in space, where concepts such as up and down are meaningful. Ultimately, space is as meaningless as time. The concept is really one of space-time belief. Paragraph 93. The physical world exists only because man can use it to correct his unbelief. The physical world exists only because man can use it to correct his unbelief, which placed him in it originally. He can never control the effects of fear himself because he made fear and believes in what he made. In attitude, then, though not in content, he resembles his own creator, who has perfect faith in his creations because he created them. Belief in a creation produces its existence. That is why a man can believe in what no one else thinks is true. It is true for him because it was made by him. And the last paragraph for today, 94. Every aspect of fear proceeds from upside-down perception. The more truly creative devote their efforts to correcting perceptual distortions. The neurotic devotes his to compromise. The psychotic tries to escape by establishing the certain truth of his own errors. It is most difficult to free him by ordinary means because he is more consistent in his own denial of truth. The miracle, however, makes no distinctions. It corrects errors because they are errors. Thus, the next point to remember about miracles is the miracle makes no distinctions among degrees of misperception. It is a device for perception correction, effective quite apart from either the degree or the direction of the error. This is its true indiscriminateness. And we'll stop there, and we'll pick up on paragraph 52 tomorrow. Or not paragraph 95, which is Miracle Principle 52. Okay, and let's go back and look at our workbook and lesson again. I'm never upset for the reason I think. I do want to tell you about that theta filbert we were talking about yesterday that pollinates the Jefferson filbert or hazelnut. The hazelnut breeding program at Oregon State University, directed by Sean Mellenbacher, uses the genetic diversity in the genus Corylus to create new cultivars with resistance to eastern filbert blight. Theta is a 2009 release that is immune to the blight. Theta pollinates Jefferson and Etta with sizable nuts of its own. Plants are on their own roots, zones 5 through 8. And like I said, that was from ediblelandscaping.com. And that was your Theta filbert or Theta hazelnut. Okay, now in our lesson that we're doing today, be sure to do 3 or 4 times today. Do it for a minute or so. Probably take you a couple minutes by the time you stop and get yourself quiet, and then tell yourself, I'm never upset for the reason I think. And then, you know, and if you find, he says that practice periods in which you first search your mind for sources of upset, in which you believe the forms of upset which you think result. You should begin. And you can use this also if something comes up through the day that makes you feel a little discouraged or upset. You can say, I'm never upset for the reason I think, but don't use that in place of your mind-searching quiet time, morning, evening, and sometimes throughout the day. And, maybe a couple times in the evening. Let's see. And he says here, you may find it hard to be indiscriminate and to avoid giving greater weight to some subjects than to others. It might help to precede the exercises with the statement, there are no small upsets. They're all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. You may also find yourself less willing to apply today's idea to some perceived sources of upset than others. And if this occurs, think first of this. I cannot keep this form of upset and let the others go. For the purpose of these exercises, then, I will regard them all as the same. Then search your mind for no more than a minute or so and try to identify a number of different forms of upset that are disturbing you. Regardless of the relative importance you may give them, apply the idea for today to each of them using the name of both the source of the upset as you perceive it and the feelings as you experience it. Some further examples, I'm not worried about blank for the reason I think, and fill in the blank with whatever the person you're worried about or the situation you're worried about. I'm not depressed about blank for the reason I think. And be sure to do that 3 or 4 times today. So let's, you can do it while I'm singing, or you can just listen along and do it afterwards. I am never upset for the reason I think. I am never upset for the reason I think. There are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. I cannot keep this form of upset and let the others go. For the purpose of these exercises, then, I will regard them all as the same. I am never upset for the reason I think. I am never upset for the reason I think. There are no small upsets. They are all equally disturbing to my peace of mind. I cannot keep this form of upset and let the others go. For the purpose of these exercises, then, I will regard them all as the same. I am never upset for the reason I think. I am never upset for the reason I never upset for the reason I think. I'm never upset for the reason I think.